across our region, with our Pacific family, with our Quad partners, with our friends in Southeast Asia, the signing of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership with ASEAN, with India, with our AUKUS partners, and we continue to do that. We're deepening our relationships and friendships in the Pacific because our neighbours are our family. It's the right thing to do. And it's also good for Australia. A safe neighbourhood is a good place to live. It's why we're committed to spending $1.85 billion over the coming year in development assistance in the Pacific. It's why we're providing additional defence and policing and economic and health security assistance that brings our total support to about $2.7 billion in this financial year. It's why we've established 6 additional diplomatic posts in the Pacific since 2018, in Tuvalu, in Palau, in the Cook Islands, in Niue, in French Polynesia and in the Republic of Marshall Islands. It's why we've supported our partners' COVID-19 responses, their vaccine responses, their health security responses in the Pacific with millions of vaccines. We've delivered over 500,000 vaccines to the Solomon Islands alone. And let me re-emphasise and let me say, from Australia's perspective, from our government's perspective, these are partnerships. That is the nature of the relationship. So find ourselves 4 weeks from an election where Labor has produced this Pacific policy so-called today, after 3 years. It's our view that this is an announcement that lacks substance, that seems to be a list of continuations, carbon copies and of cosmetic changes. And there's a few reasons for that. Because Australia already takes a whole-of-government approach to our relationships in the Pacific. We established the Office of the Pacific to do just that. It includes representatives of all of the key departments from across government, headed by a senior DFAT official. We already train defence and security personnel from the Pacific, particularly through the Australia Pacific Security College and, of course, the Australian Defence College. We provide maritime assistance, maritime security assistance, whether that is in the form of air surveillance through the Pacific Maritime Security Program or the provision of the Guardian-class patrol boats that have been welcomed by so many of our partners in the Pacific. We have an extremely successful Pacific Labour Mobility Program. Over 23,400 workers are here now from the Pacific and Timor-Leste. And as I've said, we've already increased development assistance in the Pacific to record levels. It's worth noting that the targeted increases, temporary and targeted increases we've delivered to address the demands of COVID-19 alone are indeed larger than the amount that the Labor Party has proposed today. In 2019, the Lowy Institute reported that Australia provides nearly half of all development assistance to the Pacific, with no other country even making a 10% component share of those contributions. So notwithstanding Australia's contribution, and that I've set out here this afternoon, Labor appears to want to say that increases in development assistance will stop Beijing's attempts to pursue a security presence in the Pacific. I'm concerned that that does not recognise the geo-strategic realities. We've been very clear-eyed about these realities, as I said at the opening of my remarks. We've seen inconsistency and confusion from the opposition. These challenges are not going to go away. So what this election presents is a choice between a government that has long recognised these challenges and is addressing them, and a Labor Party that would appear to be demonstrably playing politics on national security. I'm very happy to answer your questions.